There's something about the story of Vietnam. The story of a country that fought and defeated countless Goliaths.
Theirs is a people's army.
Going up against mighty armies, using guerrilla warfare and tunnels.
Your past, which is these tunnels,
is your present.
Is our present.
To fight for their liberation and achieving it.
You see the lotus? The lotus is in the mud, but the lotus is not dirty by the mud. Even though we have been so war-torn, we are not punished by it.
Wow.
While our people are still fighting our own Goliath, we wanted to learn, how did the Vietnamese do it? And what happens once this Goliath is taken down?
This is different.
What does a national identity built on liberation and resistance look like when the country's at peace? And is Vietnam really at peace?
There's a new disturbance of the peace, and it's this.
We traveled to Hanoi in the north and Saigon in the south with our friend Nguyen.
Didn't expect this heavy shit this year.
To explore Vietnam's story of liberation and the story it's writing now.
Rolling? So we're in Hanoi, your hometown. We're calling Grabs, which is a motorcycle, basically taxi.
Yeah.
And when you called the guy, what did he say to you?
He say đồng chí, which means comrade.
Comrade, he called you comrade. I love that.
Comrade. I forgot that that's how we address each other here.
You've been gone for too long.
I've been in Saigon for too long.
Party in the morning in Hanoi. I love it. All the aunties are doing Tai Chi in the morning and dancing. You gotta stay fit, just in case they have to fight colonialism again, you know? Just in case the French come back.
Hanoi is a city that's thousands of years old, that's lived through and expelled many occupiers, including the French. They arrived under the banner of a civilizing mission, but were really there to exploit the natural resources and labor of the country.
They worked from dawn till dusk, but they did not have enough to eat.
While French companies like Michelin Rubber made millions in profits from factories and plantations.
The French left their mark in ways that are still visible in Vietnam, whether through the architecture.
And you can tell it's quite French looking.
Yeah, it was clearly modeled after the Opera House in Paris.
In Paris, yeah.
Or through the missionaries that led the colonial incursion.
So Peter and Paul, and then you have the two Vietnamese priests on the other side.
Wow.
These are two Middle Eastern men.
Holy
but they look
smoke.
white. They look white. So this could be me.
Yeah. And then that's me.
And that's you. This is colonialism in a nutshell.
And then there's the ways the Vietnamese incorporated that French influence into their culture.
The banh mi.
Bang means pang in French.
Which is bread.
Bread.
And this one has egg.
Right, she said eggs.
Meat.
It had meat. So pâté.
And pâté.
Pâté, right, which is French.
Very French.
Right. Okay. You take a bite.
You have
so our culture, we have the guests have the first bite.
Okay.
Okay, you get
Okay,
a
here
bite.
we go.
Yeah. Right. And you can begin to differentiate the different tastes, right? Yeah.
Very tasty.
Very tasty.
Very tasty, huh?
Telling stories like this wouldn't be possible without our supporters on Patreon. To help us continue doing this work, you can join as a paid member and get access to exclusive content and unseen footage from episodes like this. Now back to the video.
People just sit out and hang out here. It's
Yeah.
much slower in terms of pace.
Yeah. When you go to any places, any cities, you can have a sense of what this place is about, what's an invitation of this place. And every city has a different whisper.
Thank you, Auntie. Come on.
Come on, go. The invitation of Hanoi, if you pay attention to the way people do things and set up, is come to us and appreciate our heritage, tradition, culture.
Hanoi is the political capital of Vietnam, home to the government today and the birthplace of the resistance that removed the French colonizers.
Uncle Ho is everywhere.
You know, Uncle, in many ways, to me, was a genius in that way, because he knew that the only way to get through the Western colonization is to be one of them. It's like we got to blend first before we ask for our own independence, right?
A hero of wartime resistance, Ho Chi Minh.
Ho Chi Minh was a Vietnamese communist revolutionary who, after spending years abroad, returned to Vietnam when it was under momentary Japanese occupation during World War II. He founded the Viet Minh, a communist guerrilla force which drove out the Japanese and then went up against the remaining colonizers, the French.
I looked at him and said, President Ho, how can you possibly fight war against the modern French army? You have nothing. You've just told me what a poor country you are. The French have planes, tanks, napalm. How can you fight the French? And he said, oh, we have a lot of things that can match the French weapons. Tanks are no good in swamps.
They fought for 8 years before the Viet Minh defeated the French and ended almost 70 years of French colonial rule. Going up against mighty armies wasn't new to the Vietnamese. Besides the Japanese and the French, they'd gone up against the Chinese and later the Americans, coming out victorious. But the French had a particular brand of cruelty that's still visible in the city today.
And this building used to be a French prison.
Yes.
Still in Hanoi, I think called Hell on Earth.
Yeah. This place was built as a symbol of displaying power, right? But also for other people to see this is what happens when you rebel against the French.
The French.
So there is some public displaying element.
They staged public executions. The severed heads were photographed and printed on postcards, which soldiers sent home to sweethearts in Paris, with kisses from Hanoi.
Like, obviously, after the war and everything, we can just throw this and turn it into another building.
Yeah.
But there was a choice by the government to keep this. And the question is for what?
This is fascinating for me because as a Palestinian, I see this, I'm still fighting my fight against colonialism now, right? And I see this and I'm like, wow, this is, they liberated themselves from the French and the Japanese and the Chinese and the Americans, and this is a symbol of it because it was on hell on earth, right? Hell on earth, and it is for me, wow, this is what post-liberation could look like, right? Yeah. We can have a museum one day that says,
oh wow, now I'm touched by what you said.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so now you haven't gone to the stage where you can put
a museum
up. You know, when people can commemorate something, that means they have moved on.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the purpose, and I feel moved by it. Is that what we have is very fragile. And we want to remind ourselves that what we have is very fragile and it can change again. Yeah.
After the French were defeated by the Viet Minh, Vietnam was divided into two. North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh, established a communist government with strong ties to the Soviet Union and China. And South Vietnam, led by an anti-communist Western Allied ruler, which was supported by the US. This division launched a second, more brutal war, this time with the US getting directly involved.
If the United States now were to throw in the towel and come home, and the communists took over South Vietnam, then all over Southeast Asia, all over the Pacific, in the Mideast, in Europe, in the world, the United States would suffer a blow.
The Western world calls it the Vietnam War, but to the Vietnamese, it's known as the Resistance War against America to save the nation.
Can you ask him what was his personal feeling when they divided the country in half?
Không bao giờ mình có thể chấp nhận.
Can never accept it.
Never accept it, no.
Không bao giờ. Bởi vì là một dân tộc.
This is one nation, one tribe. This is impossible, unthinkable, because if you have North and South, you're one country, but then you see each other as enemy.
This is Doan Ngoc. He's the Vietnamese composer behind one of the most famous wartime songs that's still popular to this day.
Would he sing it for us?
Yeah.
Rồi gì?
Rồi.
Năm manh kém trên một chiếc xe tăng, như năm bông hoa nở cùng một cội, như năm ngón tay trên một bàn tay, đã sung trần cả năm người như một. Vào lính xe tăng anh trước anh sau,
Uncle Ho saying here?
This is, even if we have to burn the entire Cheung Sơn range, which run from north to south, we must regain our independence for our country.
This is something that is, I think when you combine it with People's War, with the mythology of resistance, this is, to me, is a message of sacrifice. We sacrifice to at all costs to win our liberation from colonization.
One of the things that later on in my life I learned is when Nixon was writing, there was an exchange of messages from Nixon and Ho Chi Minh, and Nixon was asking the Vietnam to give up because otherwise there will be a lot more atrocities and casualties. And then Ho Chi Minh reply was, Nixon, you don't get it.
You don't get it.
It's not about how much we have to lose. We are willing to lose everything. And and I think that really speaks to the pain of the people also who have little to lose. You know, really, for Nixon, I imagine it was a very remote situation where you press a button. Your soul is not in the game, your skin is not in the game. Yeah, maybe your political power is in the game, but that is nothing compared to what we have to lose. Yeah, this is deep in our collective psyche.
Yeah,
and
as a country,
and
especially as Hanoi.
Yeah. I mean, of course, right? If you lose Hanoi, this is it.
This is it.
Right. It is the central, compared to the metaphor of the central nervous system. This is the brain. Lose the brain. Imagine you lose DC.
North Vietnam wanted to reunify the country under communist rule, while South Vietnam, backed by the US, aimed to maintain its independence. In the South, the Viet Cong, a communist insurgency group supported by the North, launched a guerrilla warfare campaign. The war lasted nearly 20 years and became one of the most brutal of the 20th century.
Wherever the Americans went, they burned and destroyed and killed.
US troops massacred and raped civilians, dropped napalm and white phosphorus, which roasted the skin of victims, and used chemical agents like Agent Orange, which inflicted illness on those exposed. Millions of Vietnamese soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded. The war ended in 1975 when North Vietnamese troops captured Saigon, leading to the reunification of Vietnam.
Determined to protect every inch of the socialist country.
Yeah, since post the war, post the unification, so it's not just the army soldier, but also the workers and then people from different nations, different tribes and so on. Everybody, right? Yeah. This is important photos too. It's a classic, a young boy with a flute on a buffalo, right? And this is peace, simplicity.
Simplicity. This is what we fought for, the right to do this.
But I think the thing that now I'm questioning is it a peaceful time?
Are we in a peaceful time?
Yeah, that I don't know, right? On the surface, yes.
Yes, there's prosperity.
Right.
You're not colonized by a foreign power that's invading and occupying.
Correct.
But you are dealing with another ism that is very powerful.
Correct.
And that's capitalism. You're gonna be my
Grab driver.
My Grab driver.
In Saigon because I have a bike here. Five fingers. That's what we call it. And then they keep getting more. Right. The Hanoian are proud about the culture and the heritage and the history, 1,000 years old, right?
Yeah.
And Saigon is relatively...
much more influenced by outside forces.
Yeah.
It seems that Saigon's heart is made of money, and there's nothing that's not for sale.
Under the French, Saigon was known as the Paris of the Orient. It was the economic powerhouse and center of commerce and trade. This made it a much more cosmopolitan and diverse city, drawing in more foreigners and making it more westernized. And this continued during the war with the Americans.
Good morning, Vietnam!
It's the joy and the sorrow of the city too, because you need to throw away a lot of things if you want to be open to new things. I don't think Hanoi understand that.
Hanoi hasn't experienced that kind of loss.
Yeah, Hanoi experienced a different kind of loss.
Different kind of loss, but not like this.
Not like this.
Despite its appearance on the surface, sprawling beneath the city is its undeniable revolutionary history.
We're in the middle of a neighborhood. You can tell everybody's selling something else.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were here, you wouldn't expect to find a military base for the resistance against the Americans.
Yeah, and that's the whole point.
This is a very traditional Saigonese home.
Yeah.
But there's more that meets the eye. Where would the resistance fighters, the liberation fighters, stay?
We are not going to be very public about it.
Okay.
So this is it.
It's here.
It's right in the center of the living room. Look at this. And you can barely see, right? You can barely see that it's actually a little bit of a cover up.
Oh my God.
Look at this.
It's a tunnel.
It is a tunnel. And you can follow us to...
Oh my God, this is amazing.
And so this is what's happening in where you are.
Yeah. The levels to this are insane.
Yes, be careful. It's meant to be tiny. It's really meant to be.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God. This is amazing.
It's quite well equipped.
It really is. You have everything. And so people used to live here and basically spend their entire time here.
Yeah, waiting for the news.
Waiting for the news, planning military operations. And I mean, look, I can basically almost touch both walls.
Yeah.
And most importantly,
Uncle Ho.
Uncle Ho.
He's a beating heart of it. Like, you look at him and you have your morale boosted. And this is why many people were living for it.
Yeah.
This was the face of the liberation and the face of the raison d'être of the people.
Of the people, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible that I was saying your past, which is these tunnels,
is your present.
Is our present. This is what people in Palestine are doing right now, living in tunnels, fighting colonization.
Yeah, wow.
There's no conscription in North Vietnam. All soldiers are volunteers. And behind the army, there's a whole nation at arms. This, then, is a people's war.
The US and southern Vietnamese forces were much better equipped, but the Viet Cong had an extensive network of tunnels running through the south. Some networks spanned 200 kilometers through enemy territory and were used to plan and launch attacks, transfer supplies, and provide shelter and communication to guerrilla fighters.
War against an elusive enemy.
The fact that the Viet Cong were embedded among civilians meant they were a harder enemy to fight, but that also led to the targeting and massacring of civilians.
Jamais, jamais, ils gagneront cette guerre. Jamais, jamais, nous subirons.
The tunnels remained and were an integral part of the Viet Cong's eventual victory.
From the tunnel, there's a ladder, and it's supposed to take you to a bathroom.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll all die here.
Oh my God. Hey guys, what's up? And right next to it here is the bedroom of the house.
Yeah.
And it's like,
nobody knows what's happening.
No one knows. And it's such a fundamental part, I think, of what we learn about Vietnam. Is this idea of people's war, of guerrilla warfare, but it does not work if the people don't support it.
Correct.
Because the resistance fighters didn't come from a foreign land. They're from the people. There are aunts, our uncles, our cousins, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers. So naturally, they stay with us. They live amongst us. Is the ideology just an ideology of liberation? Or is it actually communism?
Just think of it, like, people would not fight for
communism
ideology, but will fight for your brother and your sister.
Yeah.
People need the conviction of a political leader.
Yes.
That, yes, with this direction of this person, we can make it. But it's not the reason we fight.
We fight. Interesting. Yeah. Communism, in a way, lends itself very strongly to Vietnam because it's already a very community-based, family-based structure.
Yeah.
The us is stronger than the me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people are not fighting for communism.
Yeah.
People are fighting for liberation.
Yeah.
They're fighting for freedom and self-determination together.
You see the lotus? This is our national flowers. One of the teaching of the Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, very well-known teaching, is no mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus.
The Vietnamese wouldn't be who they are without their history of expelling mighty army after mighty army. But the traumas that come with resistance and liberation remain.
30th of April will be the reunification day, and people have been told by people of the previous generations who said that during that time in 1975, right? And you begin to see that something is different in the city. And then on the very last day, you hear the helicopters, and you don't know what was going on.
Yeah, wow. It was the sound of liberation.
Wow, it's the sound of something sinister is coming for the one living in the south.
As North Vietnamese forces approached Saigon, Vietnamese people in the south began trying to flee, while the US conducted the largest helicopter evacuation in history.
The city was suddenly choked with people, lorries and cars, all chasing one American evacuation convoy after the other.
They didn't know what was coming.
They didn't know what's going on.
But liberation was coming. Reunification was coming.
From the north perspective.
From the north perspective.
Yeah.
And for the south?
For the south, it's the destruction of everything they know.
So even reunification was a violent process.
Oh yeah.
Once Saigon was captured, the war was officially over. But what was left was a country devastated by war. It's estimated that 2/3 of the villages in the south had been destroyed, with millions of refugees both in the country and fleeing.
When we talk about the prison, the Hoa Lo prison in Hanoi, I was saying that it was a reminder of that peace was very fragile. Huh? I think this one more than anything, because prison is a sign of captivity and about breaking free.
Yeah.
This is different. This is about the magnitude of how far humanity can go in both directions.
Extreme violence to oppress and extreme violence to liberate.
Yeah. And you know, the weirdest thing is, growing up, I also heard of the American dream and I follow my American dream. So there is this weird psychodynamics of, there's a part of us learning that American was a bad guy, but we're not believing it because there's also there's an American dream. So there was that tiny conflict.
You know, you saying that, you have an American fighter bomber plane behind us.
Wow, it's massive.
It's massive, but at the same time, what's happening in Saigon is essentially the arrival of the American dream here.
Yeah.
With the hyper-capitalism that we're seeing around us.
Yeah.
I'll ask you this, did America ever leave?
After almost 10 years of economic hardship and post-war Vietnam, the ruling Communist Party transitioned the country to a more capitalism-friendly economic model, and it transformed the country.
Look at the tower up here.
The poverty rate fell from over 70% in the 1980s to around 5% by 2020, lifting millions of people out of poverty. Today, Vietnam is one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia, and nowhere is that more apparent than in Saigon.
You can already see the kites being flown against the backdrop of a very booming metropolitan city. This is a place our friend comes almost every day. This is essentially used to be the jungle.
It's a jungle, yeah.
And then concrete.
Developed. And then now you see concretes are
just building up.
Nobody knows how many more years all this will be filled with skyriser. For now, we still have people playing kite.
After centuries of fighting invaders, the country has only been at peace for 50 years. And while invasion the way it once looked isn't on the horizon, there are new battles taking place. Battles for the essence of the country moving forward.
We are performing comedy for these guys. 3, 2, 1.
Yes. No! Vietnam wasn't free in one day. It took many centuries.
That's true.
No! I think they just flew us now.
I think so.
Do they have any tips for us? No! Keep running!
We look at these high rises and we ask ourselves, is it what we want to see? And if we cannot stop that from happening, then at least we can do our thing.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think my flying kite is revolutionary per se.
It is. You're the generations before you fought, so you could be the boy on the buffalo playing your flute. You are the boy playing with the kite now, and now there's a new disturbance of the peace. And it's this.
This is the disturbance of the peace.
Yes.
And this is the restoration of the peace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're right, this in itself is an act of defiance. I'm going to come to the park.
Yeah.
I'm going to slow down.
Yes.
Because hyper-capitalism is going to drive me to want to produce.
Yeah, and do
to
work.
Move and to do work.
And meet the deadline. We are protecting the peace that we know is already here.
Yeah.
And it's not like we are fighting against anybody, but the act of creating a time and a space for this kind of peace is, I find, is a continuation of what we already know.
Yeah. It's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful,
so
right?
Beautiful.
I'm like
it's one of it. This is to me it's
so
very
moving.
magical. It's very magical.
So to have the magic and the enchantment return, or not lost.
Yeah.
This is the protector in me, right?
Yeah.
You know, Uncle Ho and friends has protected the country.
So
now we
you,
protect the essence of it.
And you protect the essence of it. I think along my journey from north to south, I learned a lot about what my future could be from your past and present, not just from your past.
Yeah.
Because what I take with me is not just liberation, but it's how do you build a country post-liberation.
Yeah.
And I think this has been
it's
been a learning journey, it's been a growing journey, it's been a healing journey because I feel the peace and I feel at ease. And I also feel some of its disturbances.
And my wish for you is to keep that imagination, keep that space of possibilities. Right?
Yeah.
I think the ultimate act of colonization is a colonizing of the imagination.
You're absolutely right.
You don't know what's possible anymore.
Yeah, radical imagination.
Radical imagination.
Yeah. Amazing. Brother.
And this is that.
It's that. Yeah.
This is the kite.
Love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
Ready? 1.
This way, yeah. 3,
2, 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Coming up this side. This is such a competition. Look at the competition.
Wow.
Look at the competition. Yeah, we can.
Wow, we did it.
Look at the competition.
Wow. SpongeBob who?
Then now I will pass on what I have done, the work that I have done, the liberation we have done to my brother from another mother. And this is how liberation will be achieved.
Wow. I've never flown a kite before. This is my first time.
Wow. Look at what's possible against the blue sky.
Wow. One day, Tala. One day over Haifa. Inshallah.